Scott Farrar, Visual Effects Supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic, and I think we're talking about Transformers Dark of the Moon. Or other things. You know, of course I deal in a technical field, but I'm an artist and I deal with a lot of artists too. And I think one thing that we always try and do is do something better than what we've done before. And the biggest challenge is, what are we going to do that's different? And literally, a very small idea in a conversation becomes a major idea in the film. And I remember when we were putting, the script was being written, and I was talking to Michael, and we were brainstorming long before we started shooting. I just said, Michael, I've got this reel that shows 1,000 frame per second high-speed photography of things happening, a bullet going through a balloon and water and different things that are amazing to watch with the physics and the slow motion. I said, what if we do super slow motion with the robots, slow everything down, because people said things were a little fast on number 2, and also go darker and moodier. Everybody knows what the robots look like, so let's change the lighting. And so we started out with ideas like that. Of course, the challenge was that we would be doing it in 3D, so that's a complicated layering of doing 2 eyes instead of 1, which adds at least 30% more work. So that's a challenge just because 30% more work, making a movie in less time than we had the time before. So you've truncated your scheduling. That's hard. I think in addition, you know, we're just trying to just polish the illusion, make the work that we've done better than what we've done before. So, you know, have the quality of textures and colors and vibrancy, and the acting of the robots, just keep, you know, getting better at that. This film also had a unique sort of a plan to it, which was we were going to shoot with stereo cameras. That means shoot with 2 cameras on set. So that renders 2 views that easily, you know, those are for your 2 eyes. But we're also going to shoot single lens cameras, and all that photography gets sent to a conversion company, and they synthetically create 3D they separate layers, and that's all it really is when you see 3D. One eye sees, you know, foreground over here, and the other eye sees it slid over a little bit. So separation of pixels is what you go through. So you have the 30% more work is, it's render time, yes, especially for something like Driller or Colossus that wraps around the building and crushes the building and knocks the building over. That all uses Mental Ray. Mental Ray is a program that we use so that everything reflects back. If you want a shiny object to reflect the world that it's in and look accurate physically, you have to use something like Mental Ray, where every single pane of glass calculates the reflection angles of all the light and images that are hitting it. One of those shots, like one of those major shots of the building tilting over, took at least a week to a week and a half to render for 1 eye. So that was challenging, just scheduling that whole thing out, because we had about 40 of those shots. The additional work comes to the compositor. When I say final on the shot and I like the way it looks, and I'm happy with it, what actually happens is the compositor that's working on it, that's the finished carpenter of everything. It's the guy or gal that's putting everything together, all the additional explosions, and making sure the 3D looks good and that you don't get brain shear, we call it. All the stacked images, the separation of pixels, all have to be in perfect order and arrayed in exactly the right way. Otherwise, that's how you get eye strain and brain strain. And we wanted to spend careful attention so that the 3D had a good quality to it. That's why sometimes you see a film, you don't like it, because it was rushed, and you simply can't get these things right every time the first time, so it takes a while. One thing I was going for, now this is funny, Michael Bay was not sold on doing 3D in the beginning, you may recall. And in fact, I had a meeting with Jim Cameron, and he said, he was telling me all about what to do and how to do it, because I was learning how to do 3D, I hadn't done it myself. He says, you got to have Michael call me, and actually, I had Michael got together with Cameron, and kind of went to school quickly, learned what's the equipment, how do I shoot this thing, what kind of crew do I have to have? It's a big deal, there's all these extra people that are involved. And so then I said, well, I got to learn some things too. What's it going to look like? So I did a test. I said, Michael, I'm going to take Bumblebee, and I'm going to run it out. We can, we've got these things rendered. Once you've created an object like a robot character, Bumblebee, for instance, doing that in computer graphics, once you've got it, it's fairly easy to simply create another camera angle of the same thing and say, okay, run it. So we did that with a Bumblebee walk cycle. That's he's walking and turning and moving and walking and waving and things. And just against black, nothing fancy. And ran that. I went, oh my gosh. The benefit of doing a robot in 3D that was unexpected was you have all these thousands of parts. Bumblebee's got like 13,000 parts. Optimus Prime has 10,000. So the point is, if you go for a close-up or you go for any kind of a shot where you see the depth, you see all these nooks and crannies and things. It's different than like a human face where you see contours. You actually see all these little pieces. So I showed that to Michael. I showed that to the producer, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura and Ian Bryce and all the people that were involved with trying to figure out what are we going to do. Well, whoa. And that really kind of sold everybody how cool this could be. So that was a big reason to say, we should do Transformers in 3D. Yeah, it was hard. So, a side of our business that maybe doesn't get talked about is that just like at ILM, my producer and the production staff that track every shot and every element of every shot and every artist of every shot, it's like tracking, all the planes in the air traveling across Europe or the United States all at one time. You've got to know the exact status of every piece of that shot at any given moment to know whether you're on target, on time, you're going to make it or not, that sort of thing. It's extremely challenging. But Michael started out to shoot the film stereo only for 10 days. He said, okay, we won't have time for the rest of it. The rest will be converted. Because, again, we were looking at not a lot of time to do the movie. He started shooting, and he basically fell in love with it. And so then the stereo camera rig, the Pace camera rig, became the A camera meaning the primary camera that's being used on set with the actors and so forth. And then you have supplementary cameras. Okay, why do we use just single lens film cameras or what have you along with that stereo? Well, we only had the one stereo camera and one auxiliary kind of a handheld deal. So the first problem is equipment. Second problem is ILM, we could not do fully rendered stereo shots for the great number of shots that had to be done. So we knew that kind of just in a ballpark, when we first put the budget together, we thought, okay, we can do 500 and something stereo, we can do 500 shots, we can do this amount of stereo shots of those. Out of those 500, we can hog out this many, we'll render those shots, but those will have to be converted. And in certain cases, we'll do 100% CG renders like the opening, when Optimus is talking about when they were attacked and so forth. That's 100% ILM, 100% computer graphics. Where it gets kind of complicated is where you have live action backgrounds that you've shot with the actors and so forth, and you're compositing in the layers of robot pieces and all that. And so we had to decide, where are we going to do a cherry pick? Meaning, what are we going to keep and what are we going to send away? And I said, well, maybe the diagnosis would be what I've just mentioned to you. A close-up robot shot where you can really see the depth, we had to do that. We had to render that. I don't think sending it out will look as good. So that kind of started to help us decide what would go where.